I came home that day with my skull throbbing so bad I thought I'd vomit. Pulled into the driveway, shut off the engine, and just sat there for a moment, eyes half closed. I'd left the factory early. Couldn't stand the hammering in my head, or the steady clatter of machines. I just needed quiet. Needed to breathe for a second. Hoped maybe she'd be asleep, and I could crawl into bed or slump on the couch. Something. Everything felt heavy. My shoulders ached from lifting parts all morning, and my ears were still ringing from the big press that never seemed to stop. Around me, the neighborhood was still. A stray truck rumbled past on the main road, but otherwise, nothing stirred. I opened the driver's side door. My legs stiff, knees complaining. I'm not young anymore. 50-something, each day feeling it more. The sky was that dull gray, no life in it. No sun. Just a heavy, low-hanging cloud that threatened rain but never delivered. I took a slow breath, glanced at the house. One story, old paint, some chipped spots near the windows. My father's hammer marks were still somewhere on the frame. He helped us fix it up years back. That memory flashed through my mind as I put one foot in front of the other, heading to the front porch. Didn't know then how much I'd want to forget that house. I remember the squeak of the porch step. I used to threaten to fix it, but never did. Maybe a part of me liked knowing when people came or went. Slid off my work boots by the door. She always asked me to do that. "Don't wake me if I'm napping," she'd say, so I got used to moving around like a mouse. Even though it was midday, sometimes she'd rest if her shift ended early. That was our small dance. Her crocheting or sleeping, me tiptoeing around, trying not to track in dirt. I stepped inside. The house smelled like stale coffee and fried eggs from the morning. We usually didn't talk much in the morning. She'd wake before me, rustle around, then I'd come in after my shift. Our schedules never did line up just right. I stood in the living room for a second, letting my eyes adjust. My headache pulsed behind my forehead. The place was quiet, except for the hum of the refrigerator in the kitchen. No voices, no TV, no radio. Just that steady fridge noise and my heartbeat thumping in my ears. The living room was a mess of old furniture we'd collected, a battered recliner I'd found at a garage sale, a coffee table with chipped edges. There was a thin coat of dust on the TV stand. I hadn't noticed that before. Guess you only see dust when the light hits it just right. My head kept pounding. I set my lunch cooler on the table and realized how tired I was. Thought maybe I'd pop a few ibuprofen, lie down. Heard nothing else. I half wondered if she'd gone out. Still, her car was in the driveway. So I tried to be even quieter, thinking maybe she'd dozed off in the bedroom. I drifted down the short hallway. One step, then another, until I reached the closed door. My heart picked up a bit, for no reason I could name. Maybe from the headache. Maybe from something else I couldn't put into words. The door was cracked. A thin line of light spilled out. I heard a shuffle, like sheets moving, or maybe I imagined that. My pulse pounded in my ears, drowning out the fridge's hum. The hallway air felt stale and thick. I pushed the door open an inch. It barely made a sound. My eyes took a second to adjust. The curtains were drawn, not fully, but enough that the sun only cut across the bed in stripes. That bed was ours for 30 years. A queen-size thing we bought after we married. I could still see the water stain on the ceiling from last year's storm. The overhead fan was off, which was odd because she usually liked it going, even if it was cold out. Another detail that lodged in my mind for no reason. Then I realized she wasn't alone. Her body was pinned beneath someone else's. A man. He was on top, knees bracketing her hips. He wore socks still, didn't even take those off. My stomach lurched. For a split second, I couldn't breathe. My temples started pounding like someone was trying to break out of my skull. I saw his jeans tossed over the chair in the corner. Saw my old shirt draped there too, an old work shirt I'd lent him for yard work weeks ago. A flood of confusion washed over me. I recognized him. Our renter. The one who rented the basement room, who'd been around for a few months. Brown hair, lanky build, always strumming that damn guitar. Everything felt slow and fast at once. She lay there, eyes wide open, staring at the ceiling. Didn't say a word. It was like she was miles away, or maybe in shock. He looked over his shoulder when the door creaked a little wider. I locked eyes with him. My mind stuttered. I wondered if I was dreaming, or maybe I'd passed out at the factory, and this was some twisted nightmare. But I was awake, and that was my wife. That was my bed, my sheets. And he was there, half naked, wearing my shirt. I didn't even notice how I'd put a hand against the door frame to steady myself. I stood there like a statue. Didn't move, didn't speak. My brain was jammed. 30 years. I'd come home early. She never expected me. He stared at me, eyes wide. Then he muttered something under his breath, scrambled off her, and she just lay there, eyes still on the ceiling. My heart felt like it was going to rip out of my chest. I couldn't remember how to breathe right. My shoulders locked up, and my hands curled into fists without me telling them to. I must have been there a full minute without moving. Then I saw him start pulling on his jeans, fumbling, like a trapped animal. She sat up slowly, holding the sheet against her, looking so small and lost. She tried to speak, but no words came out. I heard the floor creak. I took one step back, out of the doorway, as if giving them space. My mind was in a fog, but I remember thinking, this can't be real. We've been together 3 decades. I remember our wedding photos in the closet. I remember the times we argued, times we made up. We had problems, but never anything like this. He started talking, stumbling over some apology or excuse. I couldn't make sense of it. My hearing went muffled. The only sound that cut through was my own breathing and the blood rushing in my ears. Something in me snapped or froze. I gestured for him to get out. Didn't say a word, but he understood. He yanked his shirt, my shirt, off the chair and flung it into a plastic bag he found near the hamper. She just watched him, tears lining her eyes now, but she kept silent. I hadn't said one word either. He tried to push past me in the hallway, still zipping his pants. I turned my head slightly, and he froze like he expected me to throw a punch. But I couldn't move. Couldn't speak. All I managed was a nod toward the stairs. That was enough for him to scramble past me. In the living room, he stuffed more clothes into a trash bag. I had no idea how many of his things were upstairs, but he was collecting them in a hurry. I remember thinking, I gave him that shirt so he could weed the garden out back. Random, useless thoughts. He ran down to the basement, grabbed a few more items. A minute later, he was back up with the bag bulging, boots in one hand, an old guitar case in the other. I was standing near the front door by then, arms folded. He hesitated at the threshold. Tried to say something. I just shook my head once, and he shut his mouth. That was the moment I felt like spitting in his face, but something in me said no. I just wanted him gone. Didn't want to see that face or hear his excuses. So he left, the screen door slamming behind him. I heard him shuffle down the porch steps, hurry to his old pickup out front. Saw him toss the bag in the back. The guitar case was in his hand, but I don't remember seeing him set it down. Then he was gone. The engine sputtered, and he peeled out, leaving tire marks. He didn't get all his stuff, not by a long shot, but in that moment, I didn't care. My mind was still behind in the bedroom, picturing him on top of her. Picturing her blank stare. I wondered when it started, how many times. Felt the anger swirl. But I couldn't scream. Didn't trust my voice. It might come out like a wounded animal. So I leaned against the wall, stared at nothing. The living room lights were off, but the midday glow seeped in. Dust motes drifted in a beam from the window. The fridge in the kitchen hummed on, then off. Life around me kept going. She was still in the bedroom, or at least that's where I left her. Eventually she came out, wrapped in a robe. Her cheeks were wet, eyes red. She tried to speak, but I cut her off with a small gesture. I couldn't even look at her. The floor seemed like the only safe place for my eyes. We'd been married so long, but at that moment, she felt like a stranger. The smell of sweat and betrayal clung to the hallway. She started to say my name, but all that came out was a rasp, and tears choked off the rest. I went past her, back to the bedroom, and stared at the rumpled sheets. Our bed. The pillowcases we bought last month. Something broke inside me. Instead of yelling, I just grabbed the corner of the mattress and began stripping the sheets off in one rough motion. Threw them in a heap. I was shaking. She stood there silent. I yanked off the blankets, tossed them aside too. Moved like a man on autopilot. I thought maybe if I tore up the bed, I could tear out that image in my head. But it wouldn't leave. I stumbled down the hallway with those sheets, out the back door, and stuffed them in the garbage bin. Didn't even care if neighbors saw me. Then I came back inside, and she was in the living room, trembling. Tried to say something. Her lips moved, but no real words came. I passed by, found his guitar leaning against the chair, that old battered acoustic with stickers on the back. He loved that thing. Treated it like a treasure. I remember him polishing it, talking about playing in some bar. Didn't think twice. I snatched it up and walked out the back door again, across the yard, straight to the small pond behind our fence. She was following, calling my name, voice cracking. I heard her footsteps in the grass, but I never turned around. Reached the edge of the pond, green scum floating on top. Without a word, I hurled the guitar as far as I could into the water. It landed with a dull splash, half floating, half sinking. That was it. I heard her sob behind me, but she didn't come closer. I went back into the house. Marched down to the basement where the breaker box was. Found the switch that controlled the power to the basement, his space. Flicked it off. Then I locked his door from the inside and slammed it shut so it clicked. She stood at the top of the stairs, hugging herself, face streaked with tears, robe clutched tight. All I said was, "He's gone." My voice was raw, the words scraping my throat. She tried to approach, arms out, but I sidestepped. Stood there, looking at her for a long moment. Then spat on the floor, near her feet. Not at her, but close enough that she understood. The disgust. The anger. The heartbreak. It was all in that spit. She let out this choke sob, and I just turned and walked out the back door again, letting the screen slam behind me. I ended up in the shed that night, a small wooden structure we used for storing tools and boxes of junk. Part of the roof leaked when it rained, but I found a dry corner with a spare blanket. Lay down there on the floorboards, listening to the crickets outside. My body felt rigid, like I'd done a week of labor in one day. My mind wouldn't stop racing with images, him on top of her, her eyes to the ceiling, the quiet. It played on a loop until I thought I'd go insane. Eventually, I dozed off, woke up again to the sound of raindrops tapping on the tin roof. I watched water drip in one corner. Heard the distant rumble of thunder. Part of me wanted to cry, but the tears wouldn't come. I just lay there, feeling the ache in my chest, thinking about how 30 years could shatter in one afternoon. Outside, the rain kept falling, and I realized I felt more at peace in that rundown shed than I would have in the house. Something about that hammered home the truth, things would never be the same. Next morning, I couldn't face her. The sun had barely come up. My neck hurt from sleeping on the hard floor. I slipped out of the shed, careful not to make noise. Stretched my stiff limbs. Stared at the window of our bedroom, her bedroom, I guess, trying to sense any movement. Saw nothing. The yard was wet, the pond behind the fence still. The guitar might be floating around in there, or sunk to the bottom. Didn't care. I just breathed in the cool morning air. My head wasn't pounding anymore, but everything else felt raw. I tried to gather a few thoughts, figure out what to do next. Had a job to get to eventually, but my shift started later in the day. And I couldn't go back into that house. Couldn't stand the idea of seeing her or smelling that betrayal. So I grabbed some tools from the shed, just to keep my hands busy. Figured I'd patch the fence or do something with my mind, so I didn't lose it. I ended up hammering a few loose boards, the repetitive strike of the hammer against nails giving me some kind of numb routine. That's how I spent the morning, ignoring the house. Eventually, I saw the curtains rustle inside. She was awake. I didn't stop my work. Just kept hammering until my arms ached and my sweat mixed with the damp air. Midday, I heard the phone ring inside. Didn't answer. Could have been her mother, could have been a telemarketer, who knows? After it stopped, I heard her voice calling for me, but I pretended not to hear. My throat felt tight. I didn't trust myself to respond. Might end up screaming or crying, and I wasn't willing to do either. I stuck to the yard like it was my island. She was trapped in the house like a ghost I didn't want to see. The day dragged on. Eventually, I went to work, though my mind was 1,000 miles away. Put in my hours, barely spoke to anyone, came back late. The house lights were off. I went straight to the shed again, took off my boots, and lay down. I realized how quickly something can become your new normal. That night, I dreamt of the moment I opened our bedroom door. Woke up sweating, heart hammering, my mouth dry as sand. 2 days crawled by. She tried to talk to me once or twice, caught me near the mailbox or the back fence. She looked desperate. Said it was a mistake, something that just happened. I stared at her, felt the anger spike. I said nothing. Didn't push her, didn't hit her. But my silence scared her. She cried, she begged, but I had no words left. Didn't matter what she said. A switch had flipped inside me, and there was no going back. Then her brother showed up. I'd known him for years. Trusted him, like family. Well, he was family, but also a friend. He knocked on the front door, and I saw her let him in. I was out by the tree line, thinking I might chop some firewood. He came out to find me, hands in his pockets, eyes full of pity or shame or something. I put down the axe. Just looked at him. He swallowed hard and said, "We thought you wouldn't find out." I swear, I felt the ground shift under my feet. "We?" I asked, my voice almost a whisper. He told me he knew about her and that guy. Told me they'd all been covering it up, hoping it would pass or something. My stomach churned. A few weeks back, that renter had shown up with a black eye. Claimed he fell down the stairs. Now her brother admitted it was him who threw the punch, after he found out about the affair. But still, he kept it all secret. Never told me. He said they didn't want to break me. I stared at him, my jaw clenched so tight I thought it might crack. He looked down at the ground. "I'm sorry," he said. "I should have told you." His hands were shaking. She kept saying she'd end it. I couldn't process the betrayal. We'd spent holidays together, grilled out back, shared laughs, and all the while, he knew. That stung almost as bad as the cheating. I didn't yell, didn't curse him. Didn't have the energy. I just stood there, breathing slow, feeling my fists tremble. He took a step closer, maybe to put a hand on my shoulder, but I backed away. I spoke softly, so softly I hardly recognized my own voice. "Get off my property!" He looked at me like I'd slapped him. Tried to argue, tried to say something about fixing this, about family. I just repeated, "Go." I was trembling inside, but my face felt numb. He nodded, swallowed, and walked toward his car. I watched him leave. Couldn't even muster the anger to throw a rock at him, or something. Too hollow. The sky overhead was turning a dark, stormy color again, like it was about to rain. Perfect timing. She hovered at the doorway, eyes puffy, seeing him depart. I didn't even glance at her. I picked up the axe, turned toward the woodpile, and let the blade fall. Over and over, each strike echoing across the yard. She finally went inside. I didn't stop chopping until the sun sank and my arms were numb. Then I slumped in the shed, not sure if I'd ever feel okay again. The worst part was how quiet everything felt, like the calm after some explosion. Except the debris was inside my chest, scattered everywhere. Those next days blurred. I went to work, came home, avoided conversation. She tried more than once to explain. I wouldn't listen. Didn't care how it started, or what it meant. I just wanted to erase the sight of them in our bed. Couldn't. So one morning, I woke up in the shed, stared at the ceiling drip. Something snapped into focus. I was done here. Couldn't stay in that house another day, but also couldn't just walk away without making a move. So I began collecting boxes. Didn't tell her what I was doing. Just filled them with tools, personal stuff, anything that mattered to me. I had a small workshop in the garage with some old machines, tools I used for side jobs to earn extra cash. I sold them. Put up ads, talked to a couple guys from the factory who needed equipment. The deals were quick, cheap. I wanted it all gone. The day I sold my big lathe, I felt a pang. That lathe had served me for years. But the money I got, I quietly tucked into a new bank account she didn't know about. I sold my old Fergan, my work van, the one I used for hauling materials. Posted it on some local board, a guy showed up, handed me cash, drove away. Didn't feel any regret. I was cutting ties. Told the same buyer I had a line on a house about to go up for sale. He was curious, but I told him we weren't quite ready. Inside, I was boiling with a plan. Days went by, tension thick in the air. She seemed to realize something was up. Tried to ask me about the boxes. I just shrugged. Getting rid of stuff, I said. She looked nervous. She'd been staying mostly in the bedroom or living room, crying or looking at me with guilt in her eyes. Some nights, I saw her curled on the couch, phone in her hand. Probably calling her mother or her brother. I shut that out. My mind was locked on the next step. Finally, the moment came. I'd quietly talked to a real estate agent about listing the house. He said we needed both signatures, but I told him I'd handle it. It wasn't entirely legal, but I pushed forward anyway. I timed it for a day she said she'd visit her mother. That morning I got up, watched her drive away. Then I went inside, started hauling out furniture, personal belongings, everything. Stacked it in a friend's truck bed. The friend didn't ask questions, just took it to a storage place I'd rented. The living room went bare. The bedroom was stripped already. The kitchen ended up with just a table and a couple chairs. By the evening, the house felt hollow, every echo bouncing off empty walls. I found a piece of paper, scribbled a note. You slept with a shadow. Now live in it. Short, cold, final. Left it on the kitchen counter. The sign in the front yard went up that afternoon. For sale. Even if she tore it down, I'd already set things in motion. The agent had the paperwork. She might try to fight it, but she wouldn't see a penny if things went how I planned. Maybe that was petty or cruel. I didn't care. She'd destroyed something that took 30 years to build. This felt like justice in my own quiet way. By the time I'd finished, the house was almost empty. I locked the doors, slid the keys into my pocket, and walked away. My heart was hammering, adrenaline or anger or both. I felt numb. Could still see her face when I first caught them. But now I had a direction, a purpose. I got in my car, an old sedan in my name only, and drove off. She started calling my phone an hour later. I saw her number light up. Didn't answer. She called again. I let it ring. She left voicemails. I didn't listen. Turned the phone off, tossed it on the passenger seat. That was that. I ended up near the state line, drifting on highways, not sure where I'd settle. Found a cheap trailer park behind a gas station that reeked of diesel and old grease. It was nowhere, just a stretch of road that cuts between Kansas and Arkansas. People pass through, fill their tanks, maybe grab a coffee. Then move on. I parked my sedan, paid the guy who owned the lot, and took a trailer that smelled like mildew and stale cigarettes. Tiny windows, torn linoleum floors. But it had 4 walls and a door that locked. Good enough for now. I turned on the single overhead light. It buzzed. Sat on the small cot that passed for a bed and felt the weight of everything come crashing down on me. I'd left behind a lifetime. My job, my family, my friends. Maybe I was crazy. But I couldn't breathe in that house anymore, not after what happened. I stared at my hands, calloused and rough, scars from years of manual labor. Those hands had built so much. Now they shook, remembering the day I saw him with her. Nights in that trailer are long. The gas station lights glow through the blinds, and I hear trucks pulling in at all hours. Sleep doesn't come easy, so I step outside sometimes, look at the wide sky. Kansas or Arkansas, not sure where the line is exactly. The clouds drift overhead, and the stars look indifferent. I think about the life I had. The betrayal. The rage that pulsed through me. But there's also a strange stillness now. I'm free in a twisted way. She still tries to reach me, leaves messages on an old phone I sometimes turn on. She says she's sorry, calls it a mistake, begs me to come back. My chest tightens when I hear her voice, but I delete every message. Nothing left to say. I made my choice. The money from the house will come through eventually, or it won't. I'm not even sure if she'll fight it. Either way, I'm not going back. That place is haunted for me, filled with the echo of them together on our bed. There are nights I consider driving back just to see if it still stands, if she's still there. But I never do. I get in my car sometimes, drive a few miles to a roadside diner, sip bad coffee, and watch strangers come and go. They don't know me. I don't know them. It's a kind of relief. I feel like a man in exile, but at least it's my choice. I don't regret what I did, throwing his guitar in the pond, spitting on the floor, tearing out the power in the basement. He deserved worse, maybe. She might say I was cruel. But in that moment, it felt right. I did what I had to do. Looking back, I'm not proud of everything, but I'm not ashamed either. I was a man who got hurt and dealt with it in the only way that made sense at the time. Sometimes I wonder if the occupant of the next trailer can hear me tossing in bed at night, whispering curses under my breath, or if they see me stepping outside to breathe the cold air, trying to chase away the memories. Probably not. People here mind their own business. Everyone's got their own story, their own scars. The trailer stinks of cheap whiskey some nights when I can't sleep, but I don't spiral into a bottle often. Learned that lesson a long time ago. My father drank himself into a grave, and I swore I'd never follow him. So I keep the drinking in check, enough to numb the edges but not enough to drown me. Instead, I watch the sky, let the quiet of these endless plains do its work. The hum of the gas station lights never fully goes away. Neither does the memory of that day. I think about how easy it is to break a life. A quiet shift in routine, coming home early, and everything you thought you knew just shatters. I think about how people can lie to your face, how family can hide things for months. I remember her tears, how she called his name once when I walked away, like maybe she was more worried about him than me. Then I shake my head and stare at the stars. That's behind me. All I carry now is the memory. Time moves on, dragging me with it. My hair's getting grayer, my back stiffer. But each day, I wake up in that trailer, swing my legs over the side of the cot, and remind myself I'm still here. The biggest betrayal in my life didn't kill me. It just changed me. I smell like gasoline from working odd jobs around the station, pumping gas or fixing tires. My hands are always dirty, but I don't mind. I'm not looking for anyone's approval. I don't plan the future much. Might head further south someday, might not. This corner of nowhere feels like enough for now. Sometimes I catch myself smiling at the absurdity of it all, living in a cramped trailer with water-stained walls after 30 years of marriage. But that's how it is. Life doesn't always tie up neat. Sometimes it unravels, leaving you in a place you never imagined, breathing in the smell of fuel and dust. At night, when I finally crawl into that squeaky bed, I don't pray for forgiveness or redemption. I'm not looking to be absolved. I just close my eyes and let the quiet settle over me. And in that quiet, I remember everything. The day I saw them. The minute he packed his stuff in a trash bag. The guitar sinking in the pond. The moment her brother said, "We thought you wouldn't find out." The day I sold all my machines. The note I left on the counter. Her calls, which I ignored. I see it all so clearly. The pain still flickers in my chest, but it's a dull ache now, not a raging fire. I guess that's what time does, it wears down the edges until they're bearable. Doesn't erase them, just makes them part of the landscape of your life. I'm no saint. I did what I did. She did what she did. There's no going back, no do-over. And that's okay. Because I'm still breathing, still moving forward, even if it's slow. That's my story. Didn't expect to tell anyone, but sometimes words just need to be said out loud, even if it's just in your head or to a stranger who might listen for a minute. It's not pretty, not clever, but it's real. 30 years of marriage ended in one afternoon, and here I am, parked in a trailer by a gas station, somewhere along the line between Kansas and Arkansas, living with the taste of betrayal in my mouth, but still waking up every morning. I don't feel sorry for myself. Don't feel proud either. It just is what it is. And that's the truth of it. I remember. I always will. But I keep going, one day at a time, with the hum of the overhead lights and the smell of gasoline trailing after me like a second skin.